Boom, 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 boom. All right. Damn. All right. Let's see if we can get this going and kind of do this.
It's time for BGFG.
Gonads are useful for their purpose, but they are no substitute for brains.
All right, here we go.
I have to say, well done. Great. Well done. Well played, my adversary. Well played.
Fenix isn't gay, but if he was, he'd pick Freemo.
Oh yeah, he'd be living down there with you in the bunker, man. Woo!
Once you go free, you always do the Z.
Like one day I'm not going to Duncan and you could get a controller, a new Xbox, possibly even a cord.
And now your host is back from Dunkin' Donuts.
Welcome to BGFG episode 340. I'm your host, Chris Fenix, and as long as I can hit that mute button, we should be good to go. Freemo is not with us today. He's still on sabbatical. He's doing his thing. I can't tell you where he is right now because it's part of national security, apparently. That's what he said to me. So I don't know how true that is, but he unfortunately is not here today. So I'm going to be steering the ship yet again. And yeah, that's about it. So first thing that we do in BGFG is we usually give not really an award. It's hard to say an award, but we notify you of the people that are not coming down for breakfast. And those are the people that have been part of our generation, part of our lives, that aren't coming down for breakfast right now, which is unfortunate. And yeah, I don't have words for sometimes some of these people that come in and out of our lives. I don't. So first one that came up today was Mr. Ron Popeil, 86 years young. This is the guy that started all the infomercial crazes. If you don't know, you should, because act now. Anytime you hear act now for $19.99, 3 easy payments, that's usually from Ron Popeil. It was late night or early in the morning. You'd see him. There's always, but wait, there's more. And it was Ginsu shopping knives, and it was the pocket fisherman. There's a bunch of stuff that was out there. And again, he really sparked. I mean, he's even been lampooned on on Saturday Night Live and on a lot of other stuff. He's always been lampooned. He started the whole thing. He's created an entire empire worth millions of dollars, and it was all because of infomercials. That's what he did. That's where he cut his teeth. So to you, my friend, a golden ticket and towel. May you sell your wares in the afterlife. The other person, unfortunately, is not coming down for breakfast this week is a Mr. Dusty Hill, bass player for ZZ Top. And for those that just think of ZZ Top as She's Got Legs and the whole 80s thing, you're missing out, because there's a lot of older stuff ZZ Top-wise that's absolutely phenomenal. And I always thought it was funny because Dusty Hill has the long beard. The only person in the band that doesn't have a good a good beard. I mean, you got Billy Gibbons. He's got his long beard. Dusty Hill had his long beard. But Frank Beard didn't have a beard. He was the drummer, which I always thought was funny. Dusty Hill was 72 years old, and they used to call him Mr. Blues Shuffle and C. And he could hold down the fort. When you have a three-man band, if you look at anything like Stevie Ray Vaughan's band Double Trouble, you look at ZZ Top, these smaller bands, when it's, three-person band that have survived, there was a lot of fill-in stuff. These people did this because that's what they did. They wanted to have a full sound. And when you have a three-piece band like that, a bass player especially has to really step up. So the music choice this week, which we'll get into later, is definitely inspired by, being a bassist as I was when I was younger. Dusty Hill was something else, man. He held that down. So we'll talk about that a little later, but right now I think it's important that we get into the news because, well, there's a lot of stuff that's broken, and I want to try to stay positive, but we got to get some of the not so positive stuff out of the way first. So let's get into that.
BGFG News. You heard it here third.
So one of the first things we want to get into this week is the right to repair. Now, I just want to bring this up quickly because the right to repair is a big deal. And with the right to repair, you have the right to have your shit fixed. Plain and simple. And what's been happening, and even as an Apple fanboy that I am, Freeman would be right here telling you and making fun of me for it. But even as an Apple fanboy, I'll be the first one to tell you that while I love Apple and I love their product, I love the way they design it, I love how sturdy it is and how long it lasts. But to be honest, I mean, you can't fix them. In the early days, you could because it was more of a hobby, but as they got more popular and got bigger, you couldn't repair them. And I can tell you from working in the industry now, where I am an Apple repair. Well, I don't do the repairs, but I am certified as an Apple repair agent, and I have to know all the processes. It's still a situation where it's like, it's not a good scene, man. It really isn't. It's really hard to repair these phones, and they do not make it easy. And if you want to be a third party and do it, that's even more difficult. You can't get the parts easily, and if you do, you have to be ultra certified. Then you have to go through all their stuff. I mean, my God, look, they're making it. Once the right to repair thing came around, you started seeing the phones get more and more difficult to repair, and I'm telling you that from firsthand knowledge. The iPhone 12, for example, now you have to have a machine to heat up the screen to pull it off the unit. iPads aren't even fixable at this point. As far as we're told, they get sent in and get replaced immediately. There's no repair process for them. Now, at a kiosk, there might be, and you might be a person that bought this or got this as a gift. You can't afford to get a new device, or you can't afford to have it fixed officially from Apple. That can cost you $200-$300. So instead, you go to one of these mom and pop at a mall kiosk, and that shit should work right. There shouldn't be a problem. But you know what? Sometimes that's third-party stuff or gray stuff that you can't really control it. Well, now the FTC is behind them, and the FTC is actually pushing the right to repair, where you have to make this easily accessible. If you want to know what's involved in some of these things, I encourage you to click on the link in the show notes, read what the FTC said, and then go to ifixit.com, and you'll see clearly what it's like to open up one of these things. And look at one of the older iPhones, like an iPhone 4. That's a bad example. An iPhone 5, that was relatively easy. iPhone 6 wasn't that bad either. But then you get into the 11, the bigger 11s and the 12s. It's a nightmare to change these. It really is. It's not easy. And speaking of broken, again, might as well just get all this stuff out in the open now. The other thing is, we were talking about Biogen, or we'll talk about Biogen. It's a company, creates drugs. And we've had a big problem here on the show with Big Pharma before. You shouldn't have to have a $50,000 medication. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that big to keep people alive. And don't even get me going on the fact that you got to take a pill to counter the side effects from the first pill you took because you were sick. I don't understand how that always happens. But let's talk about Alzheimer's disease for a second. It's an awful disease. There's a drug, and I'm going to butcher the name of the drug. Aduhelm, I think it's called, from Biogen. I'm not going to say it again, but it's Alzheimer's drugs from from them that we spoke about before. We told you on the past show that doctors have resigned from the board of directors because they didn't approve it, and they don't think it should be approved. Because it doesn't really, it's hard to explain. You're going to have to look into the show notes or go back to last week's show where I explained it a little bit farther. But it's really in depth. It works for some cases, doesn't work for others. But the FDA didn't, they didn't listen to the board of doctors that said, look, this shouldn't be out there. It's really not it's a possibility, but it's not everything that we told you it was. But it's more about the money than the health issues, I really think. Because the FDA approved the drug. Many doctors were still on the fence about it, but you got a couple of doctors saying that it's a miracle drug because it fit a certain patient's needs and it helped them perfectly and did everything it was supposed to do. That's great. I love that. I think that's friggin' awesome. But at the same time, it's not doing everything it's supposed to do, and I think that's a problem. Other doctors, the people that have left, have said things like, it's a $56,000 a year drug that most people in that age bracket, 85% of the people that are eligible for this product are all on Medicare. And Medicare is now balking at whether they want to pay for it or not, because it's really a hypothetical whether it's going to work. They've read the papers, and they're not sure. Medicare's not sure if they want to cover it because it might not work. And when you have 85% of the people that are eligible for it on Medicare, and Medicare is not sure how much they actually want to cover for it, that's a problem. It should be covered, and it's not being covered. I'm having my own health issues right now, so I can sympathize with some of this problem. But you have to follow the path, and you have to realize that this is truly a money grab. Big Pharma creates the drug. Hospital buys the drug outright, and if you hear a little buzzing, I apologize. My air conditioner just kicked on. It's hot. Big Pharma creates the drug, right? Hospital buys the drug outright in bulk. And if you've ever worked in the medical field, or if you know anybody, ask them about the sales reps. Sales reps are always beautiful people, guys, girls, doesn't matter. They'll come in, they'll offer all sorts of stuff. They will buy lunch from the most expensive place ever and have a whole lunch spread for you like on a daily basis. I know a few medical people, and they hardly ever have to pay for lunch because it's almost always right there, especially at a private doctor's office. So the hospital buys the drug outright in bulk, and usually has a minimal discount, which is a whole nother story. Patient comes in, needs the drug. The drug's down the hall in the freezer. Drug's there. Okay, the doctor has to now send requests to the billing office. The billing office submits the request to the insurance company to get paid for the drug. Now, the insurance company can take up to a month to reply to that request for that drug. Let me just rewind that for a second. You can wait up to a month for the drug that you need for your health that's in the next room. That doesn't make any sense. Once they approve it, now the patient has to make a new appointment to get the drug, gets the drug. Now he has to go to the pharmacy, pay for the drug, depending on how much it is. It could be anywhere from, $5 with a copay to $80 to even more, 100 and change. You just don't know. And then you get into an issue like with my wife, who's on aloxicillin, whatever the hell that thing was that Trump said would cure COVID. Well, I live the next town over is a very affluent town. And of course, all of they went right to the pharmacy, the local pharmacies, and got all of those drugs. My wife couldn't get the drug. I had to travel all around to try to get the drug for my wife, who needs it to live. So this whole time of getting this drug for somebody can take up to 3 to 5 months. The drug is next door. The drug is right there, but you can't get it. You can't get a sample. Sometimes you can get the samples, but you can't get the drug. You have to wait 3 to 5 months for approval process. And they're not exactly doing it in a fast manner either. It's just shitty. It's a broken system. It's a completely broken system. And you know what else is broken? And just to add to that, granted, we're talking about health-wise, but your mental health is just as important. And we've learned that coming out of COVID, is that your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and they intertwine. I'm even learning that now. But one of the other things that's broken dramatically, and I see this a lot, I see it during the COVID crisis. I see it a lot with 20-somethings right now. For instance, let's just say that I have 5 or 6 people that I know of that are investing money at work. And regardless of what they're investing in, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, most of them are invested in cryptocurrencies. Some of them are invested in other things. Nobody's doing the whole real estate thing. But they are investing in something. So good on them for doing that. What they're investing in, and I keep telling this, and some of them are just thick-headed. There is no easy way out of it. So if you're using like a Robinhood, we've talked about this on the show before. If you're using like a Robinhood crypto wallet, then you're paying Robinhood, and then Robinhood's making the deals. So when you want to cash out, you have to take a loss, essentially. You're not going to get all that money. You have to pay the brokerage, even digitally as a brokerage, kind of like a blockchain in a way. So the blockchain itself, which is what I want to talk about this time, because we talked about blockchains before, and what happens is the blockchain is up on the internet, and it's constantly going. No one person has it. It's just constantly in the Ethernet, in the internet, and it's a absolutely brilliant way to keep something valid. So, say if I have a martial arts certificate that I signed for somebody, now that signature, if they take a copy of that and put it up on the blockchain that's dated, it's signed. There's nothing to debate that because it can't be changed. It can't be doctored in any way. It just sits on the blockchain. So I don't think the crypto wallets are broken as much as they are extremely flawed. And everybody said that the blockchain is going to be great. You're right. The blockchain is great. It's the wallets that are flawed. So when you own cryptocurrency, right? So if you own Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of those, or Dogecoin, it's all on the blockchain. That's where it lives. And it's super secure. So your wallet is essentially where you keep the currency. Now, there's a lot to choose from. There's Exodus, Trexor Model T, Robinhood, Coinbase are the 2 most popular ones. They're really the way that you want to do these. Now, one of the files that you get is called a JSON file, which we'll get to in a minute. The JSON file is how it identifies you as you. Well, there's a couple from Washington, D.C. that can't access their wallet. Now, one of the guys that gave me inspiration, he's from a local area where I live originally, but Leo Laporte, the tech guy, the mayor of the internet, if you will. He's got like 8 Bitcoins in his wallet, and he has no idea what the password is, and he can't get to them. And that's some big money. This couple out of Washington, D.C., they're out 3,000 Ethereums. That's about $5.8 million. Just to put that out there, it's about $5.8 million. The JSON file, which is a secure type of JavaScript, never downloaded. They sat on it for like 2 days or so. It wouldn't fully download. The couple then asked the company that controlled the wallet to resend the JSON file. And they're still waiting. They've been waiting since 2014. It hasn't come through. And every time they get a runaround, they get told it's on its way. They get told all sorts of lies and bullshit constantly. That's tough to take, man. That's a lot of money. And they're actually prosecuting right now. They have a law firm. They actually have to get a law. When you're talking this kind of money, you have to get a law firm. Plus, I believe if you read the article, click on the link in the show notes, the article is actually, the wallet firm is out of Switzerland. So let me tell you something, that when it comes to stuff in Switzerland, they're not in a rush to do anything for you. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying the way their banking laws are, there's a reason why a lot of people choose to do banking in Switzerland. There's a lot of very lax rules. You know, to coin a phrase, they respect people's privacy. Read into that as much as you want. There was also a guy out of San Francisco that did a gig for a group or a company, I believe it was. He got paid in 2010 with Bitcoin. Great. I got paid with Bitcoin. He didn't care at the time. He was like, yeah, whatever. All right, fine. It wasn't even that big of a job. I could only assume it was something like resetting something, and he didn't have to do anything hard on the network. So, because I've done that, where I've gone into a job location, and I've been like, look, I'm not even going to bother charging you. Give me gas money, because I came down here and I flipped the switch that you didn't see, even though I told you to do it. So I can see that happening. The guy in San Francisco, though, had 7,002 Bitcoin. So I can only assume that in 2009, 2010, he was probably getting $150, $200, and they paid him in 7,002 Bitcoin. because there wasn't really a value for it back then. Well, now it's worth $223 million, and he can't get it. He can't get shit out of it. He's used his wallet. It's called Iron Key, his wallet, and they allow 10 attempts to try to unlock it, and he's had 8 attempts, I think, now. After the 10th time, it gets locked forever. Oh, I don't even know what...
It's such a shame you can't see what finger I'm holding up.
It's so bad. It's just so bad. That's money from people. That's just insane. It's okay when big pharma or a CEO takes a hit like that, but a little guy, a little family, a couple maybe that just invested in this or got paid in Bitcoin because that's all that person had, whatever the case is, these are small people and that could really change their lives. It's not going to change a CEO's life. It's not going to change Big Pharma's life. It's not going to change Tesla if they charge a Bitcoin as opposed to cash. It's not going to change any of that shit ever. It's just, it's pretty shitty. I think it needs to be looked into a little bit more. You need to create a way that these blockchains and these wallets can be accessed for another method. But then if you do that, you're opening it up for hackers and nefarious people to get access to the wallet. And that's where the problem truly is. That's why, in my opinion, I don't think it can ever be it's got a long way to go. Let's put it that way. It's got a long way to go to be a legitimate currency. And I've had arguments with 20-somethings at work that it is a legitimate currency. It's absolutely a legitimate currency. Right, it is. But when you can't access your currency, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So I don't care when those bigger people lose a password or something. Or like with Ryan Reynolds, you get hacked and you feel bad for that sort of stuff. And I'm talking about Mint Mobile. Now, if you haven't heard of Mint Mobile, you might have heard a couple of commercials or something. This is a mobile company. I can't remember the exact name of it. This is when I wish Freemo was here. I can't remember the name of what they call it when you bounce off of their signal. You pay AT&T, say. You create your own mobile company. You pay AT&T for access to their network. What you do on their network, they'll regulate it. But for the most part, if you want to sell 3 shitty-ass phones, then those are the 3 phones you have on that network. It's your network. You're paying for access, so you make it work. Mint Mobile is one of those. Mint Mobile is purely online. There's no storefront at all. You order your phone. You pay for your subscription online. You get your phone online. It gets mailed to you. You have your phone. You have your SIM card. You're not going to like Geek Squad. You're not going to Staples. You're not going to whatever mobile carrier store you have available nearby. You're not going to those because there's nothing to do. They're only online. It's owned by Ryan Reynolds. And last week, I think it was, they announced that they had a 2-day data breach. Now, again, people want to harass or get shitty. It's a big company. Don't get shitty at Ryan Reynolds. This is the same thing that happened with Kingdoms of Amalur, a game that was created in Rhode Island. And the whole state complained to Kurt Schilling about it and took him to court and everything else. He paid it all off with his own life savings. I mean, Kurt Schilling was an honest guy. And the game is good. I don't care what people say. So what they would do is they would send a text and an email. Well, Mint Mobile sent text and emails to the subscribers that it did identify were part of the target. And basically what they said, and I quote, "A very small number of Mint Mobile subs' phone numbers, including yours, were temporarily ported to another carrier without permission. We are looking into it and are correcting it." I like that. I really do. Thank you for letting me know. And it was only 2 days as opposed to like a Microsoft or another big company like a Google or somebody that literally will let you know 3 months later. Now, I understand that's for security reasons in some cases to be able to catch the criminal. But at the same time, man, come on. Do something. Throw me a bone. My shit's hacked and I can't get around it. 2 days, Mint Mobile let everybody know. Let the people that were affected. And it wasn't even all of them. It was just a portion of their people. Now, yes, phone numbers were ported over. Your information that you put onto Mint Mobile is probably compromised as well. So definitely, if you're on Mint Mobile, change your password, give them a call, see if one of your numbers were affected, and that you just didn't receive the email. Maybe that's something that happened. I don't know. But yeah, it's just a strange thing. All right, so now it's that part of the show where we're going to talk about some music, which I always love. So this week, we're going to do Salute to like ZZ Top, for the most part. And what I chose was a song, very old song of theirs called Cocoa Blue. And what I want you to do is, unfortunately, the YouTube subscribers, you're not going to hear it. I apologize. So it's going to be a weird spot and slowdown. If you follow and download the podcast, you will get the full song. And I encourage you to do that. I would love to have you on the podcast. At least stop by the website. But if you get the podcast, you're going to get the song. It's ZZ Top, Cocoa Blue. It's a great song. It's a very old song, but I think it really shows how Dusty kind of held down the low end playing the bass in that band. I think it's a great choice. So we'll catch you on the other side with some stick style news, GPU updates, and for what it's worth. Catch you on the other side. All right, that was ZZ Top. Cocoa Blues. Good stuff. Love the bass line in that song. I think it's really good. Oh, I just got asked in the chat room. Flynn's Arcade is the t-shirt we're wearing today. If you know what Flynn's Arcade is, drop us an email. I'll get you a no prize. So let's get into this week's Stick Style show, and with the worst segment intro in the history of podcasting.
Gaming.
Oh, so this week in Stick Style, let's talk about the GPU shortage and your update. You know what your update is? We don't have any. That's your update. Your update is we ain't got no GPUs. But there's good news, which is kind of weird. So as you know, we can't get any graphics cards anywhere, and they're supposed to be easier to get eventually. I personally think, and Fremo did agree with me, that we're pretty confident that at this point they're just literally waiting for they're essentially waiting for Christmas time. So I think that they're stockpiling and just trickle releasing a few things for the next couple of months. That way they can have some sort of stockpile for Christmas, because they're going to make a lot of money on Christmas, and they should. So I'm really hoping that that's one of those things that happens. You can only hope. But AMD did release a new card. Can't even believe they did. But they did. They released a new card. And you're not going to be able to get it. I'm pretty confident. It's called the 6600 XT. They're calling it the 1080 Standard, which I agree with. Now, there's debates. Even in my own house, there's debates. There's debates with people I work with. Whether or not 1080, 1440, which way do you go 4K? I got one guy at work that like, oh, dude, I game in 4K, and it's all. You probably don't game all the time in 4K, but for the majority, you probably tried it and liked it, or think you're in 4K, whatever, because you're not going to get frame rates. That's just, we're not there yet. 4K is great, but you're not going to get the frame rates you think you're going to get. You're going to get adequate frame rates. Other people talk about how 144 hertz monitor with a 1440 spread is the sweet spot, and I don't disagree. I have a 1440 monitor right here. I just recently moved out my 49-inch ultra wide. That was 1080, and I moved into this 1440, and I agree. It's 144, 1440 it looks beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Frame rates, I think I topped out on my rig, on this rig. I think I topped out at like 90. Yeah, I think it was like 90 frames a second, somewhere around the 90s, and that's on Heaven Benchmark. But if you drop it down to 1080, now if you're gaming, and I've said this to my kids. My kid insists that he can see the differences between 1440 and 1080 and 144 hertz and 250 hertz. He says he can see that. Look, I'm not going to keep getting into it with him. If you think that way, that's great. If you want to piss away birthday money or something like that on a monitor, that's your prerogative. But for me and a lot of people in our age group, the Gen Xers, 1080 is going to be fine, in my opinion. 1080 is just fine. On 1080, you can also get a whole lot more frame rates. You know, I'm getting about 140, 150, depending on the game. That's about an average on a 1080 screen. I think that's adequate. If you're playing Xbox on your TV at home, you're seeing 60 frames, that's all you're seeing. You're seeing 60 frames. If you jump onto a computer and you can't tell the difference when somebody slaps you in front of one that does a lot more than 60 frames, then you shouldn't be concerned with any of these conversations. But when you can get a card that's supposedly going to MSRP for $379, that's going to be the standard, then, scam likely. I love when I get phone calls in the middle of the show. Now, if Fremo's here, I'd have to drink, which is unfortunate. So AMD is calling this card a 1080 standard. I think it's a good deal. Now, at $379, I don't think that's a good deal. I just don't. I think it's a bad idea, honestly. But as you can see from, if you're watching on YouTube, I have the picture of all the cards. You can find it online if you wanted to. You can find it online if you wanted to. And I don't know. I still want a 6800 XT, but I'm an AMD guy, so I kind of want that. But this new card kind of intrigues me for that spare computer or that secondary computer, or maybe even a kid's computer that you want to help your son build during the summer. I think that's a great idea. Have your son or daughter, they want to get into gaming, have them build their computer. It's not that hard anymore. Now, the RGB stuff will throw you for a little bit of curve, but stick to like 3 to 5 fans, and you should be fine. You shouldn't have an issue. So when you get into a lot more RGB, that you get into a problem like I did. But with that said, this 1080 card for $300, you'll probably be able to get it for like $350. It's going to be a good deal. I don't see a problem. But it's definitely, who the hell? So, again, there's not going to be a Founders Edition. Just to wrap that up, there's not going to be a Founders Edition. You're only going to be able to get it from partners. Even though the pictures show a Founders Edition, apparently they're not going to be selling one, which I don't understand. So let's get into more disappointing news, but this is one of those ones in gaming that you got to talk about because it's out there. So, as you well know, Activision's got into some hot water. Activision Blizzard. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing has filed a lawsuit. And that is alleging discrimination, sexual harassment, and a frat boy culture. I don't know if they can do the frat boy culture, but that's going to be added in there, and you'll see why in a moment. They did it over a 2-year investigation, and it was pretty bad. But again, when you've been around, like us Gen Xers have, you see some shit. And you know that some stuff's a false flag. You know, somebody had their heart broken or didn't get a promotion and calls in. Shit, I know people in almost every single job I've ever had that as soon as they didn't get a promotion they wanted or some shit went sideways, they immediately called the anonymous line and said all this bad shit about people, about the way the situation's going, even going as far as saying that there's shit smeared on the bathroom wall and they never get it cleaned. It's disgusting. You know, this is the stuff that happens, and I'm sure corporations and corporate high up in their HR department take care of this stuff and have to deal with that stuff. But at the same time, it's really like, come on. Is it a false flag? Is it bullshit or not? But this was a 2-year investigation, you know? It clearly showed in results, it clearly showed that women were paid significantly different than men, and I've always called bullshit in that. There was groping incidences. That's disgusting. There might have even been a suicide that could be connected to some of the harassment that some of these people received in the business. There's been so many things that have been done to people that work there that I can't even really list them all. And Activision and Blizzard both stated that charges were distorted and unfounded till something was released. Yep. What was released was a picture and a video that showed all of this. Holy shit snacks. You guys are sitting here and denying everything. Denying it. And then a video and pictures surface that not only do you have no leg to stand on in your denial, where it's even a question mark, like, oh, maybe they were misconstrued or maybe this was taken out of proportion. No. You literally had conventions. At conventions, you would have a Bill Cosby suite. And you even have, I mean, granted, when you go to a convention, let me pull this back a little bit. When you go to a convention, especially one of these type of gaming conventions, a lot of times they'll have suites in the hotel that the convention is at. In the upper floors, the bigger suites, and they'll do like meet and greets. They'll have the doors open. They'll show you some extreme products. When you watch a lot of the tech videos around like Linus Tech Tips, a lot of the more popular ones that get invited to these events, then you'll see the way it looks like a kind of a hotel room, and it's just a setup with everything that they have at that time, all running at the same time. So many companies have done this, even in the audio video world. I've stumbled upon those locally where I got access. And you go up into one of these suites and you'll have like legacy speakers that has just all of their products just pumping out beautiful music, and they'll give you demonstrations and things, and it's there to talk it up. It's good for deals, making deals and stuff with other partners. They weren't exactly doing that. I mean, they showed pictures of the bar that they super stocked with red Solo cups and literally quick liquor. This wasn't like a fine dining, like let me peruse you with some vintage scotch. No, this was like, here's some vodka, here's some orange juice. So let me pause this for 1 second. I got to figure out what this phone call is. I apologize. Well, that was fun. So, so I know everybody's wondering what that pause was, and I do apologize for that. That very rarely happens, but for some reason this phone number just kept calling, and it was ironically, now, this was Domino's Pizza asking if I was a specific address. I applaud you for calling me numerous times to get through, to make sure that my order and my situation was solid. But at the same time, it's like I hung up on you like 3 times. I don't know what the hell you're doing at this point. You know, don't call that number back. They obviously don't care. So, back to the story. So, this Activision Blizzard thing was a hot spot where they would go into these rooms and you actually had a picture. You took a picture. Your entire team took a picture with a Bill Cosby photo. Dude, seriously. That's got to be some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. That's like really? That's all you can think of. That's, just stupid. Stupid. Again, I don't want to go too far into it because that sort of stuff, discrimination like that, harassment, hazing, and women not having equal rights just perturbs me and Fremo to no end. It's absolutely asinine, and it shouldn't be happening in 2021. Anyway, I don't want to go farther into that. There's a link in the show notes. Go do your own research, do your own investigation, but Activision's screwed at this point. Screwed. And I know people, designers, developers, a lot of people are just leaving. So let's try to brighten things up a little bit, shall we? Let's talk about... So, do you remember going to your friend's house when you were younger? I don't care who it was. And you would maybe play Mario. Or you would play some sort of video game. When you went there, I can't tell you how many people on a shelf somewhere had a beat-up old Nintendo 64 cartridge box. Don't know why. Maybe you wanted to keep the cartridge in there, whatever. But there was always one around. If it wasn't there, there was probably on the floor somewhere or in a box somewhere, crushed. Flattened right out where you could all the flaps were open and shit. We all had one of those. Well, this ought to brighten your day a little bit. An unopened copy of Super Mario 64, Nintendo 64. Mario 64 essentially is what it was called. Just went up for auction for $1.5 million. It's a new record, bumping off the OG Super Mario NES edition, the original Nintendo Super Mario edition, went for $860,000. This Mario 64 box, and I have a picture up in the show notes and and on the YouTube channel right now, and it's pretty friggin' funny because I remember distinctly seeing a lot of these busted up boxes sitting around people's homes. And one game, which you can get pretty much anywhere at this point, but one game in a box. There's no serial number matching, man. Just get a good box. Put the box together and get it in there, and this is $1.5 million. That is insane. Insane. Another thing that's kind of cool, being a collector myself, I came across a great article about Linda Gilroy's collection. She is now in the Guinness Book of World Records. She's amassed the largest collection of LCD and playable game systems. Now, what this means is this is like those, we're talking watch games, the Coleco tabletop games. Remember the Pac-Man game and Galaxian game that they had? It was like a miniature arcade cabinet on your tabletop. God, we wanted those so bad. It's also like the handheld games, the early games. Remember the early Tan game with the green screen football game, and it was just basically dots, and you couldn't run into other dots. That game that we used to throw in our backpacks, the little handheld watch and play games that are popular. They were like made out of metal. They had like Mario or something, had a pretty cool LCD screen. I had a couple of those. Those are the type of games we're talking about. She currently has, let's round it out. She currently has 1,600 LCD games and 2,400 playable game systems. Just a super impressive collection. Watch the video because it's so cool that she did this. It's just so cool. There's so many, and there's stuff that you'll see and you go, "Oh my God, I remember that. That's so cool." I love when we see those, and you can sit back and go, "Oh my gosh, I remember that. Oh, I had that game, or a friend of mine had that game. Oh, I saw that at a yard sale once. I didn't pick it up." It's amazing when you see that stuff. I love it. Good for you, Linda. And she still plays a lot of them. Like when in your video, you'll see she pulls one off the shelf. It's got battery power and shit, and she'll just start jamming on. She's like, "Oh, yep," and then I died. And she's playing it. She's not just like, "Oh, I hit a button, blah, blah, blah." No, she's playing it. It was really cool. And back then, in those games, you didn't have to deal with ads, which brings me into my next story. The ads are a problem. And what I mean by a problem is that, I don't know if people know this, but the NBA 2K series and a UFC game came out almost at the same time. I want to say it was EA. I don't know. I want to say it was EA, but it might not have been because EA was a lot in this story. So what it was a lot of times you'll see advertisements mid-game. So in UFC, it was kind of like the commercial break. Like the bell would ring, you go to the corner. In between the corner time, they show a quick flash for an Amazon ad. In NBA 2K, it was almost like a commercial. But again, I don't want this in a game I just paid for. We're paying $60 for a game, people. $60. I've said this numerous times, and I'll recover it again right now. For $60, I expect not to have to go home and do a 2-hour update. That's the first thing. Second thing is, when I pay $60 for a game, I want the whole fucking game. Okay? I don't want part of the game. I don't want part one. I don't want to have to finish the story by downloading content later that you're going to charge me for. That's insane. Why are you charging me for downloadable content for the game? Is it another game? Then I shouldn't be paying any amount of money. It's the game I paid for. And if that's the case, if you plan this out, Destiny is a good example. Destiny 2, the game was $60, or let's say you're just getting into it and you want to buy in. That's going to be $100, maybe more, but let's just say $100. You bought in, you got a couple of upgrades. Excuse me, you got a boosted level. Now you realize that the next update comes out, the next download, the DLC comes out, and it's another $60. Okay, I see what you're doing, and I'm good with that. Freebo and I have said years and years ago that games should become episodic. You should have one back end for the game, that will survive and last you a long time. A good example is like a GTA, Unreal Engine. These engines can be updated, not super overhauled. So you have that game and just charge me $30 for the game, $30 for the game, and then charge me another $20 for each one of these packs, these DLCs. That'll give me access to a different story using the same game engine I have. Maybe I don't want to take the Sith path in that Star Wars game, but I want to take the Jedi path. I want to pay $30 for the Jedi path because that's the one I want. Maybe one day, maybe I'll take the Sith, but I really don't want to go down that path. That's a choice that people want to make, and you guys can make money on that, but you don't want it. You want to go for the greed aspect. But putting ads in games, EA is on the hook for this, and they wanted to do this across all their free-to-play games. Now, here's the problem with this. If you have a mobile game, like on my iPhone during lunchtime, I'll play a golf game or something. And there's some games that are better than others. For instance, there's a breakout game that I have on my phone that every single time you finish a level, and believe me, the levels aren't super hard, they're boredom games. So when you finish that level, immediately, bang, a commercial plays. It sucks and it's annoying, and it's like a 30-second commercial or a minute. Usually it's 30 seconds. But 30 seconds seems like a long time when you're playing mobile. Then you have other games, like a golf game I play. It's only whenever you open a special chest that you just won, and you have to earn that, and there might be one video is 30 seconds. And then there's other games that make you watch 4 or 5 videos in a row just to play the game. That's on mobile. I'm not expecting the mobile device, my phone, to be a full-fledged gaming system. I didn't buy it for that. But I don't expect that on my console. Definitely not on my console. I already paid $500. I paid a premium for my console. I don't expect to be sitting there and in the middle of a game it breaks to a commercial for sneakers. That's not what I'm looking for at all. And I get the free-to-play aspect. The free-to-play aspect gets you to buy more. And again, if you have a good engine like an Unreal Engine or something like that, you'll have a good engine to base everything on, and that's great. I don't mind that. Free-to-play, and then buy your add-ons. I'm good with that. It's a good way. If you can't make enough money for that, I apologize. But there's a company, Simul Media, that has a program called Player One. So if you ever see a Player One, W-O-N in capitals at the end of the word, all one word, Player One, they already do this. So if you see that on your computer or you see that identified in a console or anything, beware that you're going to see some ads that are legit ads. They're very, very similar to the mobile game aspect. And I think it was EA, even though in this article that I posted in the link in the show notes, even though in this article EA claims innocence, that they didn't do shit, I still think that they were secretly behind it because they've talked about it before. They've possibly done it before. And you're telling me that you wouldn't want to do that now? That's all you guys do is want to grab money, especially you, EA. EA and Activision are the two worst out of all of them that just dime you out every 5 seconds. And then they don't even fix or patch anything. They just seldom do unless it's a huge problem. And God only knows who it is that's talking to them and getting their attention. I don't see it. But that's enough of that. Let's get into this week's For What It's Worth. So, as much as I get shit for being an Apple fanboy, like I said before, I have to admit that it's getting pretty sketchy. I almost always end conversations at work or anytime somebody argues with, Apple doesn't get viruses. We'll get browser hijacks, but we don't get viruses. That's not something that happens. Well, not really anymore. They can actually get more than browser hijacks. There's Trojans that have now been out and identified, a couple of Trojans. Though very rare, they can get more popular. But now the part that really terrifies me personally is there's a new Windows malware that's been modified for Macs, and it's called Xloader. Anybody that's worked in the industry before or deals with a lot of computer repairs for friends and family, you've probably seen Xloader before. It's actually more common than you think. And it steals your login credentials. It captures screenshots. It can even go as far as doing login keystrokes, which is a massive, huge issue. It can execute files. This is pretty bad. And on a Mac machine, that's just not something. Because if you're an old-time Mac person, that I can guarantee you that as an old time Mac person, you're going to really kind of rethink things, because us Mac people, we really don't care too much about, ultra uber security. We're safe enough, but we're safe enough on our systems that we know there's no outside interference on our systems. And I didn't think I was going to see that for another 5 years until the market share was bigger for Apple. But now we're right there in the middle of it. And it's not just Apple that has to deal with this shit now. It's HP as well. HP printers, which again are everywhere. And I can tell you a quick story that, let's just say I was younger and I was being a little nefarious. I was waiting somewhere with a significant other and I wanted to I was just doing a quick little port scan, and I realized that they had access left open to their printer. I was able to go into their printer and get access to other things, and I restarted their entire system in the store, which I thought was funny. Nobody else did. My wife certainly did not. But I really know how unsecure printers are as a whole, and the printer industry. I can tell you from, again, being in it, the printer industry doesn't care. They have absolutely no care in the world. They're throwaway items at this point. If you need a printer, do not go out and buy an $800 printer. You don't need it. Buy a basic printer. There's almost nothing different. I think the few differences are, unless you get an extreme like picture specific printer, all the other basic printers that print on paper are going to do the same thing. The DPI is about the same. The only differences are going to be the speed. How fast you want that printer to kick out. That's it. And you really, come on, honest people, you don't really need it that fast, man. You really don't. It's printing. It's just that simple. But HP's got a 16-year-old software bug built into their printers. And look, it comes from their printer software, which I've said 100 times not to install. Your computer operating system, Windows 10 or Apple, Mac OS, can handle that printer all by itself. It has no need for any of your interference or any of the software from any of the companies. Brother, Epson, HP, doesn't matter. But this is in the printer driver. So there's not a lot you can do about it. I still would not recommend downloading the software because it's just going to make it that much easier. But the driver's the problem. And that's a big problem because if exploited, the attackers can bypass your security, install programs. It can have administrator access if you wanted to. If you gave it by default to your printer, then it's automatically be default to the person that's hacking into it. And again, I want to reiterate that if you say something has administrator access, that means that they can encrypt your hard drive as well and hold it hostage, essentially, and delete information if they wanted to. This is all possible with administrator access, which is why a lot of times Leo Laporte, I used to, though it's just a lot of headache. But if you want to be super secure on your computer, one of the things you can do when you download and install Windows for the first time, create your account, create an administrator account, and then create a secondary account immediately with limited access that will automatically force the computer to actually ask for the administrator account. And if somebody hacks into your normal account, they can't really get access without the administrator authorization. If you're logged in as the administrator, it's already unlocked. All they have to do is eject something. rather. So HP's making a fix for it, an updated driver, which will be out soon. So they haven't revoked the old driver because it'll lock out everyone that uses their printer. So what I would suggest right now is just hang tight, and if you can, just keep either going to HP's website. They have an auto search tool for what printer you have connected to your network and download the driver, or just simply go and download the driver, or take it to your local repair shop. And they'll ask them to look at your driver and make sure you have the most updated driver for your HP printer. It's just that simple. Some of the issues can be fixed and with just a driver, and some things can be a little bit more stressful, which is another article I found this week, which was about Wi-Fi, securing your Wi-Fi. Because again, you can't always be sure. If you're going to log in on an administrator, that's going to be fine. Your system, I've seen only a couple in my time of actual routers being hacked. Now, it's a smarter hack. What it is, and I've seen, they're actually both hair salons, which tells me it might be their software. what it is they install malware on the router itself on your home. Now, when they do that, any computer or device that connects to it is compromised because it has to go through. It's basically going to go into your router and then to their network and then to your own network. So there's going to be them in the middle, and they can intercept anything and change things. You'll get pop-ups, you'll get hacks, and the reason why I know this is because I've had people come in to our store, and they've asked me for certain things. They've asked me for updates, or they've asked me for um, why this is happening, why that is happening. And the simplest answer when I look into it is like, okay, well, we've cleaned it twice. We've done everything we possibly could to this computer, and it's not being fixed. And I don't know what to tell you because every time you take it home, what websites? I don't go on any websites. This is a work computer. Okay, if it's a work computer, it's not. It's only doing work processes. Then something else is affected. So so it used to be. Most people just use their Wi-Fi they get the way it came out of the box. It wasn't until recently that software would just activate when you plugged it in, and the software would kick on and automatically allow you to do it. But if you look at your network in available spaces, you will always see some default ones. And that could be just the serial number of the router or the address. I know some of the cable guys will put the address of the home, which I also think is a bad idea. Or you see things like Netgear 87, Netgear 85, something like that. It's just a random type. It just automatically makes it. Now, a lot of times on these modems as well, the modem router combined, you can have the right on a sticker on the box. Usually, it's on the device, on the back or on the bottom. You'll have a name and MAC address, and what that is that's the name and the password of that Wi-Fi, and that's all you need. And a lot of times, if people are trying to do this on their own, they think they can. They don't go any farther because they've either called the company already, and the company said, "Oh, it's right there on the side of the unit," and they go, "Oh, thank you," and they just do it, or they have no tech skill or want to dial into these. And I think this is an important thing. I think if you're listening to the show, then you're smart enough to be able to dial into your own router, and it doesn't matter whether it's your router or the cable company's router. Even somebody like Cox Cable, whom I have, their router, they give you access through their website into the router. So you can do things like change the router's name or the wireless name, network name. You can change, and this goes beyond some. You can get lucky. You can get for a basic setup online with some of their software. But when you want to go farther than that, you can. And you know, it's a good thing to know how to do some of that stuff. One of the big causes that you can get for internet issues is your channels. You can have, there's 11 channels, and some of those channels are used a lot. You know, some routers default with, say, channel 7. So you got everybody in your house, you got the neighbor's house across the street, you got everybody using channel 7 just because. Well, you can change that channel over if you wanted to. That's some of the access you'll have access to. Now, there's other things in there that you want to stay away from. You want to stay away from the routing tables. You want to stay away from DMZs unless you're reading an article on how to do it because you need to do it for something certain, something specific, rather. But you want to stay away from those. Those are DMZs, the demilitarized zone. It's basically an IP address you can put in manually to allow it direct access to the internet. It bypasses all security protocols. I think that's a very bad idea to do. Even when you know what you're doing, you're taking a big risk because it's a direct connection. There's nothing stopping it. I mean, it's really not a good idea. But you should always learn how to access your equipment. Always change things, change the passwords, change the names. Locking down your home network doesn't necessarily mean it's going to become 4 times faster, but it is going to become more efficient. And a lot of times when I've seen people, when I've gone to people's homes, their internet extremely improved when I just reset it because they never did. Either it never got an updated file, or it never was asked for a new updated file, or it never got updated, or there was 15, you can have 254 connections on your, but there's like 4 or 5 persistent ones that never are used, like your TV that you don't use the Wi-Fi for, or the toaster that you got from Auntie Edna because she thought you were internet savvy. That thing's trying to plug in. TVs are notorious, If you have your computer plugged directly into your if you have your printer rather plugged directly into your computer, there's no need to have it connected to Wi-Fi. Turn the Wi-Fi off. It's going to stop looking for Wi-Fi and clogging the network. It's just like lanes on a highway. It's the same friggin' thing. So to wrap up this week's show, I couldn't pass this one up at all. It's almost as if Ron Popeil put his stamp on it before he passed. I really can't make this shit up. Lorna Jane out of Australia claimed that their active life clothing would eliminate and stop transfer of all pathogens, including COVID. Yeah. I don't have anything or a sound effect for that because that's just sheer stupidity. Period. You're telling me that your leggings, your yogas, can help prevent me getting any sort of pathogen. Really? That's your claim. And you put it on your website. I posted it. You can see it in the YouTube video. I put it right here. It's literally right there. Ooh, wrong way. That way. That way. That way. It's right there. They're claiming it is. Their argument when they were contacted was that that's what the supplier told us. Seriously? You're believing the supplier on this one? Apparently they missed the common sense bus that day. Friggin' yoga pants that are gonna save you from pathogens and shit. That's some bullshit. All right, that's it for this week's show. Don't forget to email us. Don't forget to follow us and share the wealth. And usually somebody is on Stick Style often. So if you look up Stick Style along with BGFG, you'll find us at where we're at. That's it for this week. Ted's down. Show's over.
So you can find more of this garbage at bgfgonline.com. You can also send us an email with your questions or suggestions at bgfgshow@gmail.com. Find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, Podcast, Castro, Castbox, Podchaser, and YouTube. Thank you for listening.